Why do single mothers cultivate feminine sons? They make them soft because they try to protect them, while she tries to raise her daughter to protect herself. But she tries to protect her son. And you can't protect a man. You got to teach a man how to protect himself. And a woman doesn't know how a man needs to be protected in the world. A man has to teach a man how to protect a man. Because men and women don't need protection the same way. We don't even think the same. We don't even think the same. It don't matter how much or who told you to think like a man. You're not a man. You're still missing something. And then now we raise men that we wouldn't even want to marry. And we send them out into the world to interact with women. And then when the woman comes back and tells you, Miss Jackie, Miss Tina, Miss Shelley, your son, blah, 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 blah. And you look that lady in the face and you say, I don't know why he like that. He wasn't, I ain't raised him like that. Well, bitch, who did? Who raised him like that then? There wasn't nobody around but you. Who did it? Who did it? He know better. You told him better. But because you're not a man, you couldn't teach him better, because it takes a man to teach him the way that a man needs to learn. It takes a man to teach him.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome back to Consequences of Breaking Down the Black Family Structure, Part 5. Community-driven live stream with a real-time feedback in order to, in an attempt to contribute to the progressive discussions that we've been having for the past couple of weeks. Your relevant comments within this live stream are always encouraged. And if this is your first time joining us, I hope that you're able to participate and enjoy. I'm going to get right into it because there's a lot of information to cover. I want to make sure that we are absolutely tracking with the last conversation. All right. So last week we jumped right into this lack of emotional support indirectly causing very poor educational outcomes. And specifically, we talked about school graduation and dropouts. We looked at the National Center for Education Statistics, the Condition of Education report, the Condition of Education 2023, and that allowed us to look into this ethnicity-based school dropout rates, and that was from 16 years old to 24 years old, so that post-education. But those numbers, statistics, they canvassed from the year of 2010 to 2021, and that opened the door to addressing the percentage of Black students from single families that are living in poverty, because it was absolutely imperative to understand the unequal distribution of socioeconomic resources and how those unequal distribution, how that unequal distribution impacts the community via the effects of poverty. Now, I didn't really go into a deep dive into the ethnic-based graduation dropout rates. I think I lost it for a second. But I didn't go deep into those statistics for the schools that are located here in Brevard County, and that was mainly because I was short on time at the time that I was doing the research, and the format that the Brevard County Public Schools chose to report statistics, in my opinion, just like a poorly summarized or just formatted in a way that was just like, uneffectual, unimpressive. Anyway, like I said, that was in my opinion. But I did, in fact, I saw current reporting that cited that classrooms classroom learning is being hindered, and students are missing important lessons because schools across Florida are trying to overcome this surge of student absenteeism. And they were talking about students are missing very important lessons that they can't, that they're not going to be able to go back and get before moving forward to testing. So this has been an issue, and they are looking to institute certain policies to enforce that. And I know that can be a challenge. So, however, the questions were generated last week about the causes of the overall positive graduation rates that we saw when we looked at the 2023 condition of education statistics, right? So we saw that the results they were concluding with the results of depression in teens. We talked about drugs, gangs, and destructive behavior and their association to it. That led us to get real about some of the issues and we uncovered the greater need for psychological and psychiatric resources uh, just to understand, and combat the source of the issue, right? Now, we concluded last week's discussion through an idea that was an indirect result of the psychology of the brutal tactics of the Willie Lynch letters, and they intended to change, they had the purpose or the intent to change the nature of the Black African American culture, all right? They were causing mothers to psychologically traumatize their developing children. Now, we specifically observed one of those ways, very subtle, but we specifically observed one of those ways through the potential emotional manipulation that negatively impacts a young man, which was highlighted in a video that was featuring Ayanna Van Sant. Now, she dropped a lot of knowledge there. And the most important that I was trying to get everyone to pick up on was that she dropped knowledge saying that in Black culture, there's a point when fathers come to take the role of the primary influencer for the boys to avert the potential emotional manipulation that can happen because mothers can destroy their sons. That was the point she made. That video, I believe, was muted because of the music in the background of that video. I am working to make sure that we can share some of this information on this platform and still not be with any copyright issues or anything like that. I did not intend on making any money from that, but several people have contacted me about monetizing this. There are some things that I want to do first. You'll notice that I'll have a new logo, etc. There's a couple of things that I'm working on. It's just taking quite some time because between me and the hustle that I have to do, it's quite challenging. So working on that issue, but we are going to soon fix that issue. Okay. All right. Now, the Ayanna Van Sant's video was relevant, and it was relevant to the video that you just saw that I just opened with. Okay. The video that I just opened with was Queen Ajna Sarah. I don't know why I'm getting tongue tied. I'm trying to think of 4 different things. But she was there commenting about how many single mothers or how single mothers end up raising feminine sons and masculine daughters in those same reverse roles that we talked about with the Willie Lynch tactics, right? So Ajna Sarah addressed single mothers in attempts to protect their sons, inadvertently cultivating feminine sons, and that result has mothers failing to teach their sons how to become protectors themselves. And this is directly linked to the last video that we saw last week, but she's addressing it from a different angle, another variation. Now, this is an issue that's associated with the young men in crime, okay? Because you have to listen. And in fact, I'm going to show you another video immediately, so we can just roll through this because I'm already at 10 minutes. I want you to listen to her elaborate on her personal insight about how she became aware of the mother's potential to destroy their son's preparedness capabilities.
And my son told me this when he was 17 years old. He said, if you really loved me the way that you said you loved me, you would have taught me how to survive in the situations that you were afraid of killing me, instead of protecting me and not teaching me how to protect myself. And that is what happens when mothers think that they can raise men. We don't teach them how to protect themselves the way that a man teaches a man how to protect himself. What we do is we coddle them, and we become this wall of security that come crashing down when they get to smelling themselves and they in their 18s and 19s, and now he can't live in your house no more, and you send him out into the world unprotected, and that's why he resents you.
Facts.
And this is a bar that he dropped on me, and it crushed me, but I needed that because it put me back on the potter's wheel to be made over again as a woman. It changed my entire approach to men holistically.
And I hope this message was clear and was understood. I know that there's no official manual on how to raise young men, but this experience of Ajna Sarah is empirical evidence of how sometimes a mother's love can sometimes be so powerful that she overprotects her son in her self-interest of his preservation. And I hope that is encrypted. So a mother loves her son so much that she, in the interest, she has this number one interest to make sure that he's alive, to make sure he's preserved, that she overprotects. Okay, and sometimes with a growing boy, that tends to have some conflict there, right? Now that can impede the growth of a young man who is still experiencing brain development. Um, it can become very toxic and manipulative, and the result would be what you say, or what Ayanna Van Sant said last week, in that intervention video. She said the mothers destroy their sons, and this is what she meant. And she was specifically addressing that mother who was basically saying something very negative to her son. And I don't know what her son did, but I do know that that was the issue of that video. And she tried to call her out, and she tried to deflect, and Ayanna Van Sant's held her accountable. Okay, now this discussion that you just heard, that you just saw with Queen Ajna, she was having that conversation with the CEO of the podcast that it was on. It was called "It's Up There" podcast, I believe. But you'll hear her. I want to show you another one which finished out that conversation of her and Big Loon discussing, and they were acknowledging the details of what you just saw, the how being overprotective can be problematic for young men.
Facts. Because it indirectly disrupts their understanding.
Yes, I noticed she only did it because she loved me.
Yes.
But if she really loved me, you would have taught me how to protect myself. Instead, you
kept me away from it.
Yeah, you can't do that to a man.
And because it's.
So you heard that. And those are important because I want you to hear what they were saying. Because if I said it myself, it would be challenged, and not even challenged here in this platform, but it would be challenged in my DMs, or people be messaging me, and then they want to discuss it. Then it's like, this is the place to discuss that, not later. If you wanted to discuss that later or whatever, then I can send you a link and we can get into this format and discuss it, because I really get tired of typing, and I have so much other things that I want to do, that I have to do. But I'd rather communicate with you here. I won't record you and put you on, not unless you are really one of those racist individuals, whatever, who want to, say little foul stuff to me on the in the message board. We can do that. Be bold about it. See me face to face, and we can have it out. Now, Big Loon was discussing that the love of a mother is so intense that it can cause her to be overprotective, all right? And that her overprotectiveness can disrupt his growth and his understanding. Now, Ajna stated that that kind of action will cause the young man to resent his mother, okay? That was easy. That's the message. That's the message, okay? So when we're talking about single mothers and single motherhood culture, We were talking about this about 3 weeks ago, whatever. This is important because that's an issue that's common with young black men and black mothers. Okay, so we never have that conversation. Any other group I've gone to, every time we don't have those conversations because that is at the source or at the root of some of the crime that's happened. Now, I do have someone that is involved with law enforcement that I do have that conversation with, and we generally we touch on that issue, but I always tell that person, just wait, I'm going to talk about it. I'm talking about it now. Okay. I'm talking about it now. All right. Now, this is a conversation that, the conversation that you heard earlier, that's the conversation that was on the It's Up There podcast. Okay. Now, if you type in It's Up There podcast, I'm sure you'll find it in YouTube. The title of that 1 hour video is Modern Day Single Women Suck. All right. And I don't want to say that the modern day single woman sucks, but I do understand what they were trying to convey. And maybe they use that title so that they can actually, catch on with the algorithms. I know with our stuff, sometimes the algorithms are suppressed. I know that mine is suppressed because I'll be on and people will say, I didn't know you were streaming. And I literally have to reach out to everyone, but I'm not going to be tagging everyone in it. You'll either, value this information because it will be important for the future. And you can go ahead and, it's kind of like those individuals who used to watch Kevin Samuels. A lot of them didn't watch his content, but he had years of content before. And if you would have saw it, I don't think they would have been called into the show. A lot of people were late catching up. So there's other issues with that, but still. All right. Now, the video that I showed, or a clip the audio that I showed earlier is from that, It's Up There podcast from a video that's entitled Modern Day Single Women Suck. Okay. Now, that video is a great resource for single black parents to mentally consider. I'm not saying I agree with the title, but the resources that are in the information that's in that video, I would urge you to go watch it. I watched it twice. It's a very good video. They actually talk about some of the issues between her and Love Dorsey. They pretty much, they clear it and they tell the truth. Everybody else is sugarcoating stuff. Okay. All right. Many of the conscious black audience members will recognize Queen Ajna Sarah. Okay. She has many videos all over Facebook. She's been doing this for years. She has an X, which is formerly known as Twitter. She's got a TikTok, a YouTube, and an Instagram page. And I think I've been watching some of her stuff from her Instagram page. But she has a title. If you pull it up, it is titled "I Am Ajna Sarah." And I'll go ahead and let me go ahead and put on the banner for you so you guys can see it. This is important. Just waiting on it. That's cool. That is her Instagram page. Okay, so I would tell you go to it or check out her YouTube. I haven't, been on YouTube. I just saw that she had one, but I haven't been on YouTube. But I do know that she has a title on there. You'll know it's her when you see her kind of like in an Arabic royal gown or whatnot. But she basically has a title that says "Turning My Pain into Power and My Hurt into Help, Showing the Whole World How I Do It." Very interesting lady, very interesting queen. Always putting the information out there, just quality. Speaking of quality, this is where we go into the next segment, but it will still touch on what we are talking about, right? Now, this is going to be important, okay? So I had to do that. That was in the wrong order. That was in the wrong order. 1 second while I share this screen. We're about to Get a lot of information right as soon as I start rolling. Now you see it says quality input there equals exceptional output versus the garbage in, garbage out. I'll be bringing that back up, but for right now, give me one moment. Let me get this off the screen. Okay, so that's good. All right, thank you, thank you. Now, I want to go back to a lady. I'm going to show you a video, okay? And I'm going to switch around the order, but her name is Erica, Erica Commissar, and she's a licensed clinical social worker. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the video with her real quick so we can actually. Or should I even show her? Let me get to this. Let me go ahead and say this. Okay. Let me do this. Here's another element before I go on, because I have to say this. Here's another element about this conversation that may have been expressed years ago, because I know we did an episode where we talked about the black fathers and the black nuclear family. And in that episode, we expressed some of the thoughts that were aligned with Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Okay. And we had some people who were trying to delineate the attention that we were receiving at the time here in this community or on this community discussion platform. And they were trying to delineate it or to draw the attention more to this religious yet zealous attempt to establish their own platform, right? And I know they took a lot of viewers away, but that was great because that means they were small-minded. I didn't need small-minded individuals within this discussion. There's a lot of people I got to leave behind. And they tried to use Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's work that was published in one of her books as a justification to demonize her legitimacy. All right. Now, they basically said that her work was the devil's work. Okay. And they use an excerpt from her book, The ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors, to justify that statement. And we remember those individuals and their limited perspective and how quickly it became apparent that they were in a battle with us for this attention that was directed towards this critical and local social issues that need to be discussed for a real resolution. Okay. Now this is now, so up to this point, everything that I've showed you earlier, you the viewing audience, that you can see that has great legitimacy. Okay. And I'm not showing you just clinical social workers that are saying, I will show you in a moment, but I'm not just doing that as I'm showing you real people, people that are part of the Black community that are talking about these issues, because there are a lot of people who use the narratives that we never talk about this stuff. The people we're talking about it, you're ignoring. You are completely ignoring the issue. And I knew that this issue of fathers' rights or whatnot would, or anything dealing with fathers' rights would be an unpopular issue. Some people don't want to hear about it. And that is exactly why we have the issues or the problems that we have, and why you have one side that is communicating a false narrative, and the other side, is kind of quiet. And then there are other people around it that are believing the side that's talking. So up until this point, everything that I've showed y'all about, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, all the statements that she made in her interview, and the conversation that's being talked about within our community and personally, it's not a popular truth, therefore not a true concern of the mainstream, which is why I asked the question on my personal Facebook page, what is the difference between a truth and a popular truth? Okay. And like I said, the difference is your integrity. Now, that is why anyone who assumes that these issues are not issues of concern, they become misinformed, and or they become the misinformed individuals outside of our community. But even though all of the information is easily accessible via the internet and algorithms, because it does not originate from a source that they internally consider a source that gives them comfort, it isn't considered legitimate. So I decided to show you this.
We could do a whole other show about why fathers are important, because mothers regulate emotions like sadness and distress and fear. Fathers regulate aggression, and they regulate excitement. Particularly for little boys, if they don't have fathers, they don't learn to regulate aggression, and they often end up with things like behavioral issues. So essentially, fathers start out with infants, they have a relationship, but it's not until children really begin to separate that fathers become really important. They seduce the baby away from the mother. What we're finding is there's so many mothers who are single mothers by choice today. So we know that those children are having trouble separating. So in our practices, we're seeing more children with separation issues because they may attach fully to those mothers. You could say mothers are the objects of attachment and fathers are the objects of separation. Fathers lure babies away from mothers in a healthy way and say, come on, come out and play. The weather's fine. Let's go. Take some risks. It's okay to go on the monkey bars. Because mothers are very vigilant about safety and fathers are less vigilant. And so they're both necessary.
I do want to say, she was about to say, but it got cut off, which is why I sometimes hate some of these. But this is what she said. They're both necessary. Okay? Fathers and mothers are necessary. Now, that was Erica Commissar. She's a licensed clinical social worker. And according to her website, she's a psychoanalyst and a parent coach, all right, and an author. Her website states that she's graduated from Georgetown and Columbia Universities and that she has 30 years of experience in a private practice. Now, the website states that she works to alleviate pain in individuals who suffer from depression, anxiety, eating, and other compulsive disorders. The website says that by helping people live better lives and having a richer, more satisfying relationships, Erica Commissar assists them with achieving their personal and professional goals and living up to their potential. Okay. Now, well, here we have her also saying that the role of the father in the child's life is important. Erica's specific words are, we could do a whole other show about why fathers are important. That's what I'm doing right now. She's indicating that she was on a podcast where they were doing a service to society by expressing that mothers are important. So the information's out there, guys. You just have to go find it. She continued when she said, because mothers regulate emotions like sadness, distress, and fear, fathers regulate aggression and they regulate excitement, particularly for little boys. If this isn't an acknowledgement that fathers teach children how to be emotionally intelligent, then you're missing what it means to be a father, okay? The way that emotional intelligence is being insinuated here in that video, okay, is that fathers are increasing the children's capacity to be aware of, in control of, and expressing their emotions, as well as their ability to be able to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically, okay? For the term judiciously can be referenced when we think of it like this. Most of the time, we unconsciously refer to this as common sense, okay? Fathers give those children those sensibilities and the awareness about life, okay? In our Black communities, we refer to that as woke. Some people refer to it as woke. Some people just say it's common sense, but you do have to be aware, right? But because we are institutionally conditioned, not only by the public school center, but we're surrounded by this center of this European/Western knowledge that whenever a Black expert weighs in on this, we fail to appropriately value this as common knowledge. Okay, so then we say common sense isn't so common. Okay, I don't see any comments, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward. I don't believe that anybody's in the other rooms. So Erica further goes on to state, particularly for little boys, if they don't have fathers, they don't learn to regulate aggression, and they often end up with things like behavioral issues. So, boom, there it is again. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing said that, all right? Again, we come across the idea that behavioral issues or behavioral aberrations, as acknowledged by the late Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, manifest as a result of fathers not being present within the family structure, okay? That's two different women, okay? A Black psychiatrist and a white licensed clinical social worker acknowledging the important need for fathers to be present within the family structure. Then Erica Commissar goes on to also elaborate on what happens when the father is present within the family structure. She says, so essentially fathers start out with infants and they have a relationship, but it's not until children really begin to separate. Wow. That's when the fathers really become important, okay? So she plainly states that fathers, seduce the baby away from the mother. I want y'all to check this out. She said, we're, as in the licensed clinical social workers, finding that there's so many mothers who are single mothers by choice today. All right. Now, that's where we insert the I don't need a man philosophy. This is where we insert that, okay? Now, Erica goes on to say, so we know that those children are having trouble separating. She's talking about the children that are in the homes of single mothers. Okay, we already talked last week about the poor educational outcomes, and now we're talking about some of the psychological behaviors that are the result, right? She said, so we know that those children are having trouble separating. So in our practices, we're seeing more children with separation issues, and that's because they may fully attach to those mothers, right? They become too clingy and stuck with mom, right? Then she puts it comparatively, while subjectively, that you could say mothers are the objects of attachment. Fathers are the objects of separation, okay? She said fathers lure babies away from mothers in a healthy way, okay? In a very healthy way, okay? They say, come on out and play. The weather's fine. Let's go. Let's take some risks. It's okay to go on the monkey bars. Then she says, why? She said, because mothers are very vigilant about their safety and fathers are less vigilant. And so they're both necessary. Now, here's where I differ with Erica, Commissar, okay? It's not that fathers are less vigilant. I think we see the same things. We approach it differently. We think about it in a different way, which is what, Ajna Sarar was saying, basically. She said, we think differently, or women think differently than men, okay? Now, fathers understand the concept of big risk, large gain, okay? We know that, and it's probably through a lot of experience, but we know that it is necessary for a child to grow up understanding that they will one day become responsible adults that must contribute to society if they're going to be valued, right? They're going to have to contribute to society. And potentially they have to contribute in a positive way, if any way they contribute, if they're going to be valued, right? We know that in order to do that, the children eventually must have the mentality that supports the action of doing or actualization, okay? You know how the Nike slogan says, just do it. And when you're an athlete, you have to have this mentality that supports the action of competing, right? So you have to be confident. And that confidence has to be backed up by hours and hours and hours of practice, right? And that practice is going to be focused on doing what? On manifesting successful action that is intentionally and preferably repetitive. So they're going to be able to do this over and over and over again, like basketball, right? If you teach your son or your daughter to play basketball, you want them to practice to the point that scoring baskets becomes intentional and preferably repetitive, right? That action is the result of big risk. It's like entrepreneurship. And this is a very important subject for us, for the Black community here. Entrepreneurship. All right. Most entrepreneurs tell you the hardest step is what? They usually tell you it's the first step. Okay. I don't see anybody in the room. I saw one person pop in and leave, so I'm not going to wait for a response. But chime in at any time if you're, especially if you're an entrepreneur or whatnot. You want to kind of give me a break, right? But they always say that the first step, the hardest step is the first step. And they usually say you just have to jump in, right? Now, this is where I wanted to take this break and I want to show a video. Strategically, I want to show a video. And I saw it and I lost it. But it was a video I found on Instagram. And the video showed a kid successfully jumping from a countertop or like this countertop or something like that, or a desk. And he jumps from the countertop to the floor. And he's an infant, he's a toddler. And the father watches and he doesn't panic. He starts looking. He doesn't panic. He's looking. And then he starts to wonder, like, can he make it? So his son jumps and he does the superhero landing. And the moment he does that, his father just stares off in his face and starts daydreaming. He starts thinking about Muhammad Ali, Barry Sanders, Michael Jordan, all these different athletes or whatnot. And that essentially was a funny video to me because it is so true. It reigns so true for little boys. For my daughters, no. I was there to make sure it catch them. I just didn't, so I know it's different, even from a father's perspective, it's different for how, you raise boys from little girls. But we know as a kid, I use it I say this, because some people may not understand that. I know that will resonate with fathers, but here's where I can resonate with everyone, right? We know as a kid, we all dreaded jumping into the pool because we understood that it was cold, right? And that first initial jump in is like it'll be freezing. So, because of that, and I kind of related to this cold world, right? So if the kids are eventually going to become adults and getting out there and making their way in that cold world, it may be semi-paralyzing, just as it is when like when you're a kid and you're standing in front of the pool right before you jump in, And what is everybody told when we're standing at the edge of the pool, imagining just how cold it is? I think the answer is everybody's told, go ahead and jump in. You'll get used to it. So what do you think fathers are doing when they bring their children along to work? What do you think the fathers are doing when they start, setting these standards and expectations on the kids? And even the Bible has some scriptures, Proverbs 22:6, which teaches train up a child in the way that he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. Immediately following that verse, the 7th verse teaches that the rich ruleth over the poor and the borrower is a servant to the lender. Then there's Proverbs 6:6, which states, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. It goes on to say, which having no guide or no overseer or a ruler provided her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. Now all of that wisdom continued through verse 7 through to 8, right? That's biblical wisdom there. So when we ask what a father's doing, or like when someone like Erica Commissar says fathers are less vigilant, I don't think she really is like doing them a disservice by saying they're less vigilant, but I'm just covering this basis in case that's what she meant. Okay. If you pay close attention, you'll understand that fathers are really literally preparing the children for the eventuality of reality. Okay. They will become adults and they will have to work. And then there are lessons about consequences that are subsequently inevitable. Okay. And we fathers have to prepare ourselves to prepare the children to cope with that reality. Okay. So yes, I disagree with Erica on that specific terminology. But I want to reiterate what is most important is that what she stated at the end of her statement. At the end of that statement, they're both necessary. Parents, there, mother and father. Okay, not just mother, not just father, right? And that's two different professional women, all right? Like I said, a black psychiatrist and a white licensed clinical social worker, both acknowledging the importance that both mother and the father present within the family structure are necessary. I'll give a second for any feedback or whatnot, because I want to go back. I went out of order, but it was important because I want to go ahead and get that out of the way. We're at 40 minutes. All right. Now I want to go slightly back just for a second and look at what Erica said in her practice. She said some of the social workers are finding that there's so many mothers who are single mothers by choice today. And she was expressing a simple view into the current society of the family structure of society, right? That view is a very selfish and destructive fallout that was born of the social economic failures of the past. That's what we talked about, deindustrialization, right? We talked about some of the discrimination that happened with the fathers and them trying to work but only getting menial jobs, right? It is identified with the resentment of the patriarchy, and we'll address that again later, and one of the sources of feminism's popularity, okay? However, remember I said that. However, before we touch on the patriarchy and feminism's popularity, I wanted to discuss one more example of an area of single mother culture where the absence of the father negatively impacts the development of young men. And in that preview video that I posted to my personal page, that I shared yesterday on the Facebook platform, Queen Ajna Saraf said that the dichotomy of that is this. And she stated that some mothers hate their sons because they hate their fathers. She asked Big Loon, who was the CEO of that It's Up There podcast, what recommendation should a mother who is at risk of losing her son because of the hate that the sons have seen them express towards them about their father, what does it take to keep their son from building that resentment toward them? And it was powerful because if you listen to what Big Loon said, he basically said something that substantiated Ayala Van Sant's intervention that we saw last week. He said, you cannot build a skyscraper on sand. As you spoke to foundation, he was talking about when Ajna was talking about the foundation, right? Because you go back and look at that, on the It's Up There podcast, you'll see she talks about foundation, and she makes a very important speech about, the foundation and building that foundation, and the mothers having that responsibility to that, being tied to helping build that foundation. But Big Loon said, as you spoke the foundation, he said, you cannot build a skyscraper on land. As you spoke the foundation, you've got to be gentle in the words. Because again, the same way that you can breathe life, you can destroy life. He said, the woman can breathe life into a son. She can damn near make him delusional with the kind of love that she possesses and can give to him, right? She can make him believe that he's capable of doing things he never saw done, period. And I'm going to stop right there just for a second, because just for a moment, right? Because I want to point out here the validity in what he said, all right? He said that she can make him believe that he can be capable of doing things he never saw done before. And that is power, okay? I want everybody to understand that's power. That is power that is exclusive when it comes to the relationship between a mother and a son, okay? 2 weeks ago, I asked single mothers to weigh in on what element that they believe was the heavily weighed, or what should be heavily weighed, or is just as important as the unconditional love that a mother can give a child. All right. I didn't know if anyone would get this answer. I thought that a few people, if there were a lot of people, somebody would find it. But I didn't think, I don't get a lot of interaction, so I didn't think I'd get an answer to this, right? But Keep this. The influence that the mother can give upon a son can be considered something that can rival that unconditional love we talked about. It's something that can rival the unconditional love that all mothers provide children, right? This is especially important when it comes to the Black community. When we hear that it's very difficult for a white woman to raise a Black son, this is one of the three things that they're directly referring to. It's not said, it's not spoken, but I'm not snitching or anything. I'm just telling you. This is one of the things that they're directly referring to. All right. And that's a very controversial conversation that we really don't have time to dive into tonight. You're not even in here tonight, so I'm not even going to worry about it. I have to explain it. However, what is relevant is now the kind of influence that a mother can have upon her Black son. Okay. That influence is so powerful, just like Big Loon said, it can make it can make him believe that he's capable of doing things that he's never done before. Okay. That's because the bond between the two, which that bond is forged in trust. Okay. And now we're not talking about just any trust. We're talking about the kind of trust that's built through years of nurturing and the son's observation of the mother nurturing. Okay. Now that nurturing is almost always perceived as love. Okay. That's where single mothers, or not single mothers, but mothers, period. This is why they are very important, especially in the Black community. Okay. This is an important concept. All right. Something that we need to talk about more often when we have these discussions about Black on Black crime and all this other protesting and stuff like that. This is the conversation we should have been having when we saw the one mother who was beating her son across the head when she found out that he had skipped school or something and went to a protest. Okay, very controversial, right? But know that this is an important concept. This is what we're talking about here, right? Why could he do that to her and then all of a sudden he folded and ran, but he was staying 10 toes down with the police officer? This bond that we're talking about, right? It's an important concept because it deals with parenting as well as it impacts the young man's future romantic relationships. So that's how important it is, okay? This idea is associated with the positive parenting affirmations. Feeding the subconscious mind of a young Black man is something that needs to be examined further, okay? And this is where I stated something earlier, and I wanted you guys to I hate when it does a little delay. I gotta work through it. But this idea is associated to this concept that needs to be examined further. And the concept is quality input equals exceptional output versus garbage in, garbage out. You guys will recognize garbage in, garbage out. So if that works for negative things, garbage in, you get garbage out. If you put something of quality in, it will equal up to, it will result in the exceptional output. Okay, it will result in excellence coming out of it. All right. Now, this is the most crucial element that I believe should be as heavily weighed or is considered as important as unconditional love. Or I should say, unconditional love that a mother can give a child. Okay. This is the answer that I was referring to. And I was hoping that maybe one or two people would get it. Kina, I would have thought that you would have gotten this. Because you're usually on point. I would say usually you've been on point. The influence that a mother can have upon a son can be considered something that can rival unconditional love that all mothers provide children. But when I asked for single mothers 2 weeks ago to contribute, I was hoping that someone would at least have or say words of affirmation or something relevant to these spoken words that inspire love and motivation that mothers can give their sons. Now, there is a balance between sons striving to meet the approval and to impress their fathers versus the comfort of their mothers when they have achieved a life goal. Okay, we can have a discussion about that. Very open. I'm not going to go any further about that particular discussion, but that right there is a tangible solution. It is I want to say maybe a tangible revelation. Okay. For some people. but I've known this because I had a very special relationship with my mother. So here I am trying to pass this knowledge, or at least point this knowledge out that other people are saying it. Okay. So it's been said by Love Dorsey. It's been said by uh, Ajna Sarah. It's been said by Big Loon. It's been said by several other people. But we don't ever talk about that. We miss it. We always talk about, issues like, oh, we just saw Corey Holcomb arguing with Donnell Rollins. That's what we focus on. We focus on the Super Bowl and how Usher was creeping up to Alicia Keys or whatnot. But we're not talking about these connections, these important influences that can stop a child from committing crime, that can really change the outlook for a child or a young man that's having growing pains and considering joining a gang, right? So anyway, Big Loon finished up saying that women can breathe life into a son and almost make him delusional, okay? She can make him believe that, he may be capable of things he never saw done, but she can also tear him down. That's something that he said you don't see here. You'll see it if you go look at the YouTube video. Said, but she can also tear him down because as he looks to her for that love and that building up that she sometimes exhibits, he said something else about excuse the relationships with those downsides. But he basically ended it with, for a woman in that position, for a woman to have that position, she's got to be gentle with her words. Okay. Now he means that you can't speak negatively into the family structure, like embracing the "I don't need a man" philosophy that I just had up on the screen a few moments ago. Okay. Let me get it back on because matter of fact, I'll do is I'll make this just so we can get all the information on the screen because I want you guys to be able to connect the dots. La 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 la. Little Pee Wee Herman there for those who don't understand. Anyway, what he means is that you can't speak negatively into the family structure, like embracing the "I don't need a man" philosophy, because it definitely has a domino effect. And that speaking the "I don't need a man" breaks the foundation of Black life. That's facts. For all Black single mothers out there, I'm stating it. You can argue all you want. This is a fact. Okay. You can't expect, using what Big Loon was saying, the metaphor that he used, you can't expect a skyscraper of a man to be built upon a foundation that is as inconsistent as sand. Okay. The "I don't need a man" is a declaration popular with women worshiping independence. And that independence is controversially defined and almost always misinterpreted enough to promote the behaviors that fail to value the Black nuclear family structure. "I don't need a man" clearly removes any and all respect for fathers, and the respect is almost always perceived as love by those same men, by those same Black fathers. Okay? But here's the transition where we left off from last week's live stream, okay? Where we'll continue answering the question of how did the Black nuclear family structure become so damaged? And as a matter of fact, let me go ahead and how did our Black nuclear family structure become so damaged, despite the ability for us to be able to have risen above social rejection of Jim Crow and the terror of the 1920s? I saw one person pop in and pop out. People are sending me messages. But that's the question I want to know. Your opinion on that. We are at 55 minutes now. This is going to fly by real quick and just leave it open for a lot of interpretation. Okay. Now, get this off. Let me get this. Hopefully I'll be getting new graphics soon if I got time to work on it. I got a lot of work to do. But we're going to talk about the patriarchy and feminism's popularity. And we're not touching this superficially. So the patriarchy is defined as a social system in which institutions, that's my neighbor, social structures, positions of dominance, and privileges are held exclusively for men by men. Okay, it is so much of a complex explanation that it would be required at least another 30 minutes of this live stream to accurately explain it and the type that exists. Of course, that would take away from tonight's conversation or the deliberation time that I set aside for its relevance to the consequences of breaking down the Black nuclear family structure. But it is the main reason for the purpose of the existence of feminism, okay? Feminism is defined as the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of sexes. And when you say it like that, no problem with it. It's, doesn't seem to be an issue, right? But like the patriarchy, feminism is jam-packed with a bunch of independent social political ideologies, a ton of figures like Margaret Sanger, movements that are started by those figures, and hate groups that are associated to those figures, all right? But I promise you that we will revisit these concepts at a later time, as we are only referencing them right now for the following video and the discussion invoked because of the discussion that you're about to hear. Now, this is going to be maybe loud, and this is going to be all over the place, but I'm going to try to quickly summarize it before we start to conclude this video, or start to conclude this live stream, okay?
Okay, so but where did that come from? It came from a lack of fathers sitting their daughters down. To her point, she brought up a very good point. And I guarantee you, if this 80% of women had men, what do you mean why?
But why? Because there's incentive structures in place that allow women to take the father out of the home with no consequence. And women chose
historically,
to do,
absolutely.
And women in the last 100 years, or
absolutely,
since the 60s.
Yeah.
So again, women chose to do that. We didn't have to take those structures up.
Okay, so we kind of were forced to.
Now you hear her say that we were kind of forced to, okay, kind of listen to what she was saying. I was trying to hear what she was saying, and I think that she was onto something, but it wasn't 100%, right? And then enters Melanie King, and she's going to talk about the sexual revolution and the subversion that it caused. And when she says that, when she talks about that, she's referring to the social influences that were influencing our community, which it influenced all communities, but how she's going to talk about how it affected our community. So make sure you hear this. This is directly after the first, one that you saw. She's going to speak on this, and I want you guys to listen to what she's saying.
Another
no, we're not, ma'am. No.
We were not forced to. If you were going to get a check, if your husband was in the house and you had to provide for him and the kids, we absolutely were forced to take the government.
That's a false narrative. That's a false narrative.
Paint me the real one, please.
No. Okay, so I will back it up. So if we go back into this, it is third wave feminism that actually caused this, and we talked about it earlier. I was talking to Pearl about it, about Cosmopolitan magazine and how they actually it made money to create in the Black family structure specifically, because this is where the problem really lies in the U.S. I will say, I don't know how it is in the U.K., but our family structure, they purposely destroyed our family structure because it made them money. We can go into even government welfare, government cheese. There was a surplus of farmers having cows. They needed to make money. Government grants somebody needed to get this cheese, so to get this milk, get the food that they had a surplus in, or it would go rotten and these farmers would not make money. This is layered upon layers of layers that were systematic. So to say we did not have a choice, we chose greed. We chose a bag over a man. We chose to not have our children. We would rather have a bunch of money than have our children have a father in the home.
I disagree.
No. You have to know the history. This is proven
speaking history.
No,
men were not able to work and provide for their families. We were forced to take the government check.
That's false.
They couldn't stay in the house if they were there.
That's false.
Then how were they going to feed the children? And where was
the children were fed? Women were greedy
because it was coming from the government.
No. Let's get this clear.
Was home, he wouldn't be employed.
Black women wanted to be like white women in the Cosmopolitan magazine.
Them dire fighting words. She was calling it out. she was calling out. She was talking about some of the social influences that, that were, and there's, I have a video, but I think everybody's seen it. I'll probably show it next week. But when she says that, there were black women wanted to be like white women, and I find that that was true based on some of the information that I've been told individually, because I never really have a group discussion about this, because I know that it's always pushback with group think. It's just, oh, back me up, girl. Make sure we talk. No, no, no. So I know that, I understand it on both sides. I'm not just saying that, women were the only ones guilty of this, because there were some stuff with men too, definitely. And I'll just say this to the the elephant in the room about the interracial dating. And you would hear some black women, because I've had a black mother with black friends, and you would hear some of them say that, some black men think that, by dating a white woman, they have the white man's prize. Okay. And that has some connotation to why Karens and white women have such carte blanche when it comes to a lot of things. But that's just an example of a concept on the other side of the spectrum. But let's go back to this, where we're being relevant about tonight's conversation. She was saying that, Melody King was saying that there are black women who want to be like white women. And I believe I know that that's true based on some of the things, the privileges that the white women could had, the privileges that they possessed. There was a degree of freedom that they possessed that black women did not experience. But there are also some things that black women didn't experience that they, still utilized, and they joined in with the advocacy of feminism. And like I said, when I read the definition of feminism, we see that it basically is defined as the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. And I do believe that, in the equality of the sexes. However, like I said, it's packed with a lot of social ideology, social political ideologies, and there's a lot to explain around that. But that did affect some of the black women at that time, and because of this desire for civil rights, because of this desire to be a part of society in this way, this is what caused what happened to the black nuclear family structure. Okay, so there was the providing of these social insurance programs or the benefits or whatnot, and then the no man in the house rule or whatnot. Now, whether it was forced upon them is a debatable topic. It was not forced. I will say it wasn't forced. If we talk about what our culture as the black community, what we have done, we've been through so much worse. And for us to just, take the government check or whatever and run, there's a line of corruption in between our, in our community that deals with that money. And we see it now happening right now with the dating scene or whatnot. I just saw a video someone sent me of a discussion or whatever, where they were talking about, if you make less than 50,000, don't even date. And like I said, that again is the result of what we're talking about. Now, understand that the Willie Lynch tactics were put towards us to, physically subjugate us in order to build the psychological trauma. Okay, and now the psychological trauma is also being used against us, and they're using legislation, they're using policy, and it's discriminatory policy. They're using that against us to do what? To get us to turn against each other, to get them to see that, to get the black women or black mothers to see that these black fathers or the black men are useless, that they do not serve a purpose, and that they cannot provide. They take them out of the traditional role that they're known for as a provider and protector. And therefore, like, the Willie Lynch letter stated that, in that frozen independent state, the black woman will then raise the children in the same way, in reverse roles. She will raise the masculine women and raise feminine men. And we ask why we're seeing what we're seeing in society. It's clear. One of the things that, that I do believe, I think I got to show this last clip so that I can go ahead and talk about Mrs. Sue Ellen Browder. Okay, so catch this.
The woman who started Cosmopolitan magazine, the main editor, she's now a Catholic, and she repented from what she did. She said we were teaching women because we wanted all women to feel that we had a gripe with white men. And so, this is public knowledge. You look it up on YouTube.
She talks about it.
Yes, absolutely. They wanted black women to also be part of their movement and other races because it wasn't enough. The black woman and the black man had to stay together in the U.S. because it was the only way for us to overcome. What they did was with Cosmo, they lied. These were women that would say, you know what, this is a single woman, moved to New York. She's sleeping with different men. She has her life. She has her own money, her education. She's getting these jobs. These women were promoting promiscuity and living a certain lifestyle when they were all married. They were all lying and making up these people because it was supposed to be a fantasy magazine. But women were taken as gospel and real. And so what happened is black women saw the white woman as pinnacle, because we're not going into colorism and all that. That's not what this show is about. But we saw the white woman as what to strive for as black women. We're saying these white women are free. These white women are independent. These white women don't need no man. I don't need mine. He's not doing enough. He's not good enough as a black man, when our entire lives, how we came out of everything we did in the U.S. was through the black man and black woman coming together. So we allowed these women and these corporations who wanted to make money off of our backs, and they knew that we had a insecurity about being dark, about being black, and we wanted to strive to the higher societies because white women were seen as the highest.
So when we ask what happened to the black nuclear family structure, there's your answer. Now, this weekend, a friend sent me an article from the Daily Mail that talked about the deindustrialization scheduled to happen this year in New York. All right. Now, that was, I believe it was a Remington factory, gun manufacturer that was deciding to move from New York to Georgia. Okay. And this was not the only incident where deindustrialization had occurred. All right. I saw the article talk about Smith & Wesson had opened up a new Tennessee headquarters in October of 2023. And that's kind of scary because you notice about the activity in Tennessee dealing with the Nazi sympathizers or Nazi supporters. You'll know that, it's pretty important. It's pretty significant. But like I said, they opened up in Tennessee. Smith & Wesson opened up a Tennessee headquarters in October of 2023, and they were based in Massachusetts. So that's and they were based in Massachusetts since 1852. So what we're seeing there is you're seeing jobs that are going to affect those families are moving from one area to the next, and that kind of issue, social economic issue, affected the African American community then in the 60s, okay? And it's affecting communities now today, right? So what happened to those families? We're talking about, that's the kind of stuff collectively that was involved with some of the social programming of the days of slavery. All of these things collectively worked against us. No man in the house rule, all this welfare, all this other stuff, it all worked collectively against us to break the black nuclear family structure. Okay, so it's not one answer over the other, but it's collectively when they work together. And I said, like I stated here, we have to understand that there are collective issues that were laying against people. There were labor union issues that were underlining some of the protests that were occurring even before the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a part of the circumstances. And I tell people when we have these discussions personally, I always tell people that they need to understand, look up and research the Memphis sanitation worker strike, and do that before you rush to any kind of assumption that Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination was the sole reason for the riots. We have to look at the environment and the settling that gave the Black African American community the need for the transformational leader like Martin Luther King Jr. There would not have been a need for him if there wasn't, some of the collective issues that were happening at the time. Okay. Now, none of this stuff ever happens in a vacuum. I have to always explain this to people. None of this stuff appears to be just happening out of thin air, and then all of a sudden the history books record it, right? You have to understand there was a reason and a purpose. And after the Kerner Commission, right, and I mentioned that in the very first video, the Kerner Commission revealed that it was assessed that the reasons for the civil unrest at that time, social programs were reformed as a solution to that, all right? As a solution to what? To the poverty that was facing nuclear Black families at that time. And we haven't even gotten to the impacts upon the Black nuclear family structure from the war on drugs and in association with the Iran-Contra affair. We haven't done any of that stuff yet. We're just talking about just how, like, the industrialization, how the system, everything was working against those families. Now, those families they were, innovative and ingenuitive, and this is what our Black history is all about. We've been studying about that, or hearing about that all month, but we know that despite the situations that our people have risen and have always achieved. So could we have done without, been smarter about, addressing these social programs or accepting these social programs? Yes, I do believe we could have been. You can't tell me that, a Black man invented the cell phone, a Black man invented the internet or whatnot, and we not have Black individuals smart enough to understand the actual repercussions of accepting some of these programs and having those programs socially, economically remove us or castrate us and remove us from the Black family structure. All right. So with that being said, I want to conclude tonight. Let me go ahead and get this on the screen so I can say what I got to say, because I have a couple more words to say. And I want everybody to hear this. I want all my fathers to hear this. This is not a scold. I'm not scolding you. I'm saying this. I'm taking this. These are my words. And I'm taking this because I am trying to communicate something to these Black fathers who are constantly accused of the worst parts of our society, right? And this is not to say that fathers aren't doing this. I'm just asking us to continue, and I'm just putting it to words, okay? Commit yourself to the idea of family, Black fathers. When you choose to bring children into the world, you need to consider committing to a family or an idea of family. And hopefully that ideal is healthy for you, for the mother. Hopefully it includes her as a wife, and hopefully it's healthy for the children. Okay, so commit yourself to the idea of family. All right, I do believe that we already do that, but I'm just saying this. Okay, as a father, we have to be careful not only to not only be the pillar of strength for our families, but simultaneously we have to fight these deadbeat dad narratives, and we have to do it by expressing our desire to be good fathers. Okay, as a man living in an existence where your partner can do everything in her power to bear your children, yet force you out of that situation, it places great weight on all of our hearts and a great pain upon you. But those are the seeds of that concept, okay? That single mother culture, the parental alienation. Those are the seeds of that concept that, if not challenged, becomes the concept called parental alienation. And it happens far too frequently to the fathers that want to be there in their children's lives. There are extreme circumstances that warrant some exceptions to that concept. But please believe that there are some partners out there that display that kind of unprovoked, destructive behavior, okay? The kind of behavior that puts you in the dreaded position of having to go to court and then beg the court's officers to permit you to freely exercise a right to be a father to your own children. And something that you would believe are inherent rights that are inevitably bestowed until these third-party entities all of a sudden contest those rights. They contest your rights, and by some unfounded idea, right, that you don't qualify to possess those rights. That idea must be effectively interpreted to the young men of our community that are coming up, so that they are aware of the traps and the devices that have been laid and frequently used to ensnare us into debt, okay? I was recently talking to a relative of mine who understood that there are some people out there who use men to become mothers because they believe that the title of mother is going to give them this psychological importance. So, and we covered that in like part 3, I think. You know, yes, there are some women in their own ignorance that believe that being a mother will bestow importance of the perception on the set of themselves, right? That's why it's important for us men to be careful of who we choose to engage in these relationships with, because once a child enters the picture, your partner may become a whole new person. Okay, speaking from experience on this, right? Once a child enters the picture, some of them become selfish, others become abusive, and then there are those manipulative orientated partners that use the children against you. This can happen on the flip side too, fathers. So just, know that this does happen. There are some single mothers who have been victimized completely. Okay, but I hope to bring more to this conversation soon. All right, but I can't make any promises that it'll be next week. I got a very loaded work schedule. I got a lot of things I got to take care of personally. We're at a meeting. I'm at a crossroads here, and I got to take care of some things. Quentin, I do want to say I hit my weight goal, but I think I can lose a couple more, about 15 more. So, but just want to state that before I forgot about it and got too far into this. But like I said, I hope to bring more information to this conversation. So yes, there will be a part 6. I don't know when it's going to be, but I'm still working to elaborate on feminism. I'm still working to elaborate more on the Black boule and the Black elite figures, and making the making of a non-custodial parent. Very important subject there. Got to give about maybe 15, 30 minutes to that alone, probably. Court-ordered child support. I think I need to say more, but father's rights. And I'm at the point where it's a skeleton construct for this discussion. So I got the skeleton set, right? So that means that creative input is welcome for the next week. DMs are open, everybody. If you want to hear me speak on a specific topic associated to the previous discussion, okay, this is your chance to voice your suggestion, okay? So this is your chance. Until then, I want to wish everybody, I want to wish that they manifest authentic love, enduring peace, and may your paths be guided by the Most High. And I'll see you guys in about 2 weeks.